I have special thanks to Arleen for giving me so much of the rhythm of my writing life. Tonight, the structure is going to be that Arleen and I are each going to read 12 poems, but as you heard from Leopoldo, we're not going to do them in a row, each of us, but intermixed. And looks like everybody's got things muted and in speaker view. The first poem I'm going to read is from Chrysanthemum 2020 Literary Anthology. And I want to say thanks to Kun Woon for conceiving this and for his Goldfish Press. Some of us will not be king. Let wind offer her speed to someone else. When sad, we prefer to cry, unlike those throned. We will suck icicles, despite their dirtiness and cold, and tromp in our big boots to flop into snowdrift soft meadows, uncrowned. Others can claim our thunder. Others can churn our rivers. We wish instead to make happy the child each of us knew, the child each of us was. We will be angels of the flake crystal world. Some of us will not be king.
Great. So the first three poems I'm going to read are inspired by my childhood growing up in the Issaquah Valley. The first is also from Chrysanthemum, and I too want to thank Kun Soon for this publication. This is called Tree Crook Nest. Her book tucked waist tight in cutoff jeans, Monkey Child scampers up the fir tower to her tree crook nest in a secret green world, far from the other world, a world far below. A world in the making, a labor of love, with a dusty driveway to a hilltop home with horsehead windows and red barn doors, and a white railed riding ring with homemade jumps. A world of hungry cows and bony nags, of failed gardens and too many chores, where blackberry brambles, foxgloves, and thistles steal over grazed pasture lands, a farmer's folly. A world of Bonneville lines and Bonneville land, where power lines mar Mount Rainier views, where grass grows lush on easement lands, child-high grass for hungry cows and bony nags. Monkey Child, long-limbed and string bean skinny, age 6, 9, 12, the middle of 9 others, in need of what? Solitude, escape, self? Scampers from nag's back to tree crook nest, from horsehair to rough bark, from sweat to sap, perched high in tree green world, alone and free. Monkey Child picks pitch from scraped elbows, wipes hands, adjusts her glasses, and settles in to read. The second is Nurse Log. A nurse log decomposes in the woodland damp, feeding a small stand of seedlings, moss, and fern with her pulpous remains, and carpeting the forest floor in rotting red cedar. In this world of dark shadows, sunlight probes the lush canopy above, and a heady, pungent scent permeates the air like fine perfume. This is the world of her secret hideaway, her camp in the woods, a farm girl's version of a townie's playhouse. The cedar is the solid wall, the other 3 only lines of stone. But where solidity is lacking, creativity abounds, and rooms can be enlarged, reduced, reconfigured at will. A girl of few fears, she is at peace in nature's embrace, alone, but never lonely in this world of her own. She sits, skinny back resting against her nurse log, her long legs crossed inside the rock walls of her living room, a book in her lap, her imagination soars. As afternoon light fades, she heads home to her nurse mother, the tickle of fern and the prick of Oregon grape on her bare legs, the sweetness of wild huckleberries on her tongue, guide her along the hidden path through deepening shadows, the path she alone knows to her secret camp in the woods. Okay, and this third one is Dinner Time in an Unfinished House. If you put it on your plate, you eat it. If you don't want to try it, don't put it on your plate. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. A clap of mom's hands, the call to dinner. Chairs scratch and squeak on plywood floor as kids clamor to places at the family table. A squealing babe in her tired arms. Mom slides food from stove to table as dad takes his seat at its head. Serving bowls pass from hand to hand amid the clatter and clink of plates and flatware, the whispers and whines of 9 hungry kids. Dinner time is family time in this unfinished house on undeveloped land, the dream of exhausted parents with too many kids. A life of stubborn grit, of work ethic beyond compare, of daily chores, always chores. Cows to milk and stalls to muck, weeds to pull and produce to harvest, livestock to feed and exercise and groom, meals to cook and dishes to wash, floors to sweep and furniture to dust, laundry to wash, hang, fold, and put away. On jolly days, dinner time is a twitter of laughter. On hard days, parents spent, a hand to tabletop quiets all. The munch of many mouths, the only sound still heard. 6 decades pass, 8 siblings remain, older adults with memories of childhood and dinner time in an unfinished house. Thank you.
The next 2 poems I'm going to read have titles that come from captions on photographs by Robert Reynard, who is a friend of mine who works at the Tate Museum in London and who I only know from Facebook and Zoom. I like his aesthetic, I've liked his photographs, and I've written a number of poems based on his photographs. So this first one is called When Sunlight Comes into Your Flat and You Have a Desire to Capture the Moment. Stand at the center of your studio to capture that sun on its path to your body, hot despite the crispness on this fall date. Go blind for a moment as you record a ghost's dance, its bending of rays. Your father would today have been a year shy of 100. Hold him always. Hold in your heart. His presence sturdier than this phantasm of our closest star scalding the wall of your home. The second is called Even Birds Came Down. Even from plane trees, even from gables, even from nests, coops, perches, in sadness, not in a flock, singly, and twisted their small skulls to stare Cyclops style, one eye directed at each tragedy. Isn't it fascinating, in all their symmetry, this avian version of contrapposto? We primates square our shoulders for a straight gaze. Pigeons swivel to confront. Another shutdown descends. We see the world through window panes. The birds look in at us.
Okay, these next three poems are inspired by my sisters, two of my sisters. Okay. Who will open the door? She opens the door on the second knock, a hunched woman with sunken cheeks and gray eyes once as green as my own, eyes of our mother shortly before death. She shuffles backwards, confusion in her gray eyes. Slow recognition transforms the face of this fragile woman, 20 years beyond her 67. A word, a gesture, an invitation into her small home. A quick glance of kitchen and living room reveals a sink buried under dirty dishes, stacks of unread newspapers, MSNBC blaring, countertops and table covered with burnt cookies and Christmas gifts, a husband overwhelmed by expectations and illness. She is present, and then she is not. How is your? A long pause, hand motions. Health, I offer. Good, knock on wood. Good, she repeats. That's. Unloading the overloaded dishwasher, I ask where to put things. A clear response to one question, a confused look to another. I ask for a clean dish towel, and she shuffles down the hall. 5 minutes pass, maybe more. She returns with hand towels. She's there, and then she is not. On switch to off in the brain. Her jaw slackens, drops wide, her mouth a cavern in a sunken face. I sit close, stroke her back, hold her hand, rub coconut oil into our shared family curse, dry skin, but a minor curse. Dementia and cancer, now those are curses. I stare at her cavern mouth and sunken cheeks. I squeeze her dry hand and she returns to me. Let's watch a Christmas movie, I say. News all day would depress anyone, I think. She stretches on the sofa for an afternoon nap. As Cosby and Kay croon, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, I wonder what dreams hold my sister. Where does she go as her slack jaw drops, her cavern mouth widens, her raspy breath deepens? I wonder if she will ever return. Her sick husband naps in the bedroom. My sick sister naps on the sofa. It's time to leave, to face the mountain drive before dark, before snow, before ice. How does one leave a napping house? A bathrobe becomes a blanket with none in sight. A note on the counter, a silent escape. Lock the front door and the misery behind. I carry my guilty health and haunting sadness in heavy clouds that fill the cavern of my car. Sadness stronger than the striking glory of snowy silver mountains at sunset. My sister's slack jaw and cavern mouth are the the mask Mom wore on her last day, as I sat at her bedside, holding her hand, stroking her back, urging her to let go. My sister wears our mother's mask. Dementia took Mom at 88. Will my sister make it to 68? Next visit, who will open the door? Thank you. Jury duty, January 2010. One judge, female, not male. One defendant, Black, not white. Two attorneys, not teams of many. 16 potential jurors, counting me. It never goes away, this feeling of death. Ridgway's profile, Maureen's ghost. Nothing is real but the tremor in my hands clutched tight in my lap. Endless questions, idiotic responses. Ex-husband 20 years ago arrested. Will anything about that experience? I hold myself together, arms around torso. Are there any other reasons? My hand signals. Juror number 5, my sister, Green River victim. Voice cracks. I'm excusing this juror. Bailiff, please. Adrift in heartache and memory, I wander downtown Seattle. 26 years since the murder, 6 years since the sentencing, only yesterday. Today was yesterday. And one more. The evening news on January 25th, 2021. I made a mistake turning on the evening news. I saw his face, the last face my sister saw, the face of her killer. I made a mistake. My body, 37 years since her death, 19 since I knew his face. Now another family knows. His youngest known victim, only 14, Bones 10 for 37 years, now reclaims her name. And I made no mistake at all. Thank you. Pam?
My next 3 poems are from my new book, which came out in November, Her Imaginary Museum. It's available at in a brick and mortar at Paper Boat Booksellers if you happen to live in Seattle, and if not, it's at Kelsey Books, the publisher, and at Amazon. And I don't have any trouble like touting this and encouraging you to get it, because it means you get this beautiful cover art, this collage by Omar Willie. And never mind what's inside, you get Omar Willie's art. This is Halls Never Built. No guards, no sound, except floorboards under her feet. The viewer alone in the gallery, paintings aglow. Curators mounted track lighting to perfection. Every artist's palette richer here than ever on their own easels. Pigments more vivid even than in their inner visions. The viewer walks and walks as if hunting for Mona Lisa at the Louvre. But this museum has never met a Da Vinci or a Cassatt or an ancient Greek urn. This still labyrinth belongs only to the viewer. You know why. It happens to you too. You have roved halls never built. You have dug for treasures never buried. You have sung songs never composed. Mother color. This is inspired by the art of Joan Kirkman, and it is in the form after Ursula K. Le Guin. Mother color, omnipresent, multitudinous, descanting across canvases in upswelling umbers, ambers, ochres, roar of iris indigos, mimic of Kandinsky pinks and greens, enchantment of chartreuse ruses and minor scales of royal blues, surround us, synchronize us with your immeasurable emissions to hum, to hear, to harmonize, to respect all prisms in our eyes. Blink. How does anyone believe the artist who says her painting will kill those who glance without effort at its surface? But guards keep their backs to the work all shift, and those who purchase tickets sign waivers. Without a death, the opus travels 3 sites. Critics ask, if threatened, might viewers at last give artists their due? Is the painting a boon to more than its venues? Is no blinking the fugu of visual art? While the painting reminds the director of a certain annoying childhood game, he prohibits minor entry to the exhibit. No blinking may never be in private hands. Owners forget to value their goods, and their babies cannot know to avert their curious tiny eyes. The postcards, safe to glimpse, bore everyone. Without its menace, the staring face is a simple bully with a single skill. Plus, the brushwork is clumsy, the figure unconvincing. The painting a young girl sees is itself a bully. Dismissed, a fraud, worse, a bully herself, a gimmicker, a gymcracker, the artist takes a cigarette lighter to no blinking. Although quick to spray flame-suffocating foam, the noble guard is too slow to stop her. The painting burns to ash. The artist adopts an alias, moves to another country, and cultivates wine grapes that cannot mind being told what to do. To admit mistakes overwhelms some of us. Start again.
Wonderful.
Pam, it might have just been me, but I lost the last 3 lines of your poem. Could you read those again? What I'm concerned about is it won't show up on the video.
I'm going to back up to the artist adopts an alias. Okay. The artist adopts an alias, moves to another country, and cultivates wine grapes that cannot mind being told what to do. To admit mistakes overwhelms some of us. We must torch everything. Start again.
Wonderful. Okay, these next 3 poems are a little lighter. I love the curious tiny eyes that kind of leads us in here. These 3 are inspired by the rewarding and sometimes daunting experience of becoming a grandmother. If you saw the photo of my little grandson, now 9 months old, this is to him. Bookended by babies. My college teaching career began with evening classes in 1987. 2 years later, on a mid-May evening, my daughter was born. Baby and I spent summer together with Dad at our side. When autumn came, I returned to work. Erin passed from my arms to Dad's. A rush to work, a 3-hour class, a rush home to breastfeed. Once stopped for speeding, I pled my case, earning a partial escort home from a red-faced officer. Walking and talking our prerequisites, Aaron began daycare, and I accepted a tenured position. My baby became a mother during the pandemic of 2020. 2 months later, a 10-year buyout ended my 33-year career. Aaron and baby spent summer together with dad at their side. When autumn came, she returned to work. Jack passed from her arms to mine. Afternoon nap. The stairs slick in stockinged feet, babe in her right arm, railing in her left, neither enough. Her arm twists back as grip is lost. Babe clutched in both arms, they fall. Head, back, elbows scream as babe slips from frantic arms. A wipe of wet eyes, a shake of hazy head, a sip of now cold tea lift me from my sunny sofa. In a silent house, I tiptoe open the bedroom door, listen for life in the tiny bundle, hold his rhythmic breaths in my palm. And the last, dim sum on Father's Day. Paper and plastic cartons line the wooden table. You in your infant seat, another carton, one more in the feast before us. At table's head, dad to your left, grandpa to your right, the men I cherish, the men who fill my dreams. And your mom, beside your dad, across from grandpa and me, her smile mirroring the love in my marrow, for this life we share, for the joy you bring. Born in the pandemic lockdown, born above social protests blocking streets below, you, my cherished boy, bring this joy to our tiny pod. Amidst the long line of sushi, sashimi, and egg rolls, you are one more delicacy. Thank you.
The next 4 poems are Pantoons, 2 by Arleen, and the Pantoon for Memories of Sunshine. Hidden above the cumulus, I know there is an egg yolk sun. On some dark days, I imagine being in a plane above clouds. During the recent blizzard, I worried about the early flowers. A solitary daffodil had stood jaunty in our sidewalk box until the storm. On some dark days, I imagine being in a plane above clouds where there is blue, and I am as blinded by brightness as by the solitary daffodil that stood jaunty in our sidewalk box until the storm. My daughter found its severed bloom on a snowbank. Where there is blue and I am blinded by brightness, I stow it to bring into my home, like the severed bloom found on the snowbank. Hidden above the cumulus, I know there is an egg yolk sun. Perihelion Pantoum. Today, Earth is at perihelion. It's hard to believe we are closest to the sun. Air hangs damp. It's hard to believe when sky hums gray, air hangs damp, and doves refuse their duel. When sky hums gray, I turn this direction to see live things, but doves refuse their duel and perch in isolation around the corner. I turn this direction to see live things, glimpse only a stranger from this perch in isolation. Earth flies nearest its star. I glimpse only a stranger at a distance from me. Earth flies nearest its star. Earth is at perihelion.
Okay. ever constant change. Violent river rages, anger's flash flood. Empty words spewed, feelings frayed raw. Anger's flash flood, gentle words caress. Feelings frayed raw, lasting love laments. Gentle words caress, calm river meanders. Lasting love laments love's blues and grays. Calm river meanders, collecting sand and rock. Love's blues and grays in ever constant change. And another winter morning. Excuse me. Not awake, no longer asleep, in the silent, soft nest of darkness. Reluctant to face a new day, warm dreams whisper my name. In the silent, soft nest of darkness, unscathed by frozen rain or icy streets, warm dreams whisper my name under gunmetal sky and shrouded sun. Unscathed by frozen rain or icy streets, I sit with hot coffee, notebook, and pen under gunmetal sky and shrouded sun, scribbling shapeless thoughts or unfinished dreams. I sit with hot coffee, notebook, and pen, not awake, no longer asleep, scribbling shapeless thoughts or unfinished dreams, reluctant to face a new day. Thank you.
I'm going to read my last 4 poems. And I want to thank Claudia Castroluna, our state poet laureate, for creating poems of shelter for this time we're living through. And this poem appeared in those. The unheralded Junco becomes a star. These months without our teams, we convert a dose of sports spectator energy to the closer study of our feeders, hung for kitchen window viewing. We predict a Pacific wren, a Western tanager, a waxwing, someone a little flashy or rare with a crest or dazzling yellow plumage. Always, the crow will be captain, the stellars jay and starling, the crew. A robin who tugged off a strip of birch bark, presumably for his nest, almost Deanna's, but they aren't in contention since the salvia is out along the side path, hidden from us while we eat. How to explain my choice when it is not the brightest who wins my affection, not the lifeless novelty, not a record setter, how from the rear emerged an unexpected hero, an unassuming little gray-brown body, black-headed, with a surprise of white in its tail at departure. It chips at the seed cake I made. It pecks in our clover yard. It hops up the front walk as if to join us inside for tea. It likes what we set out for it in wire baskets and flies in and out of our lives repeatedly each day if we're lucky. A wild thing for us to see. Plan for honey. When every boxwood boasts its own orb-weaving charlotte, and harbor seal pups bask on the shores of the Salish Sea, and the moon paces by Libra, the spring of our hearts has arrived. Plums know to open blossoms. Rounds of robins bounce and dash in territorial face-offs by the Grand Red Oak in Hiawatha Park, and at the center of Belvedere's green space, and in your yard, if you have one. Colors shift. On their palettes, artists mix pinks and scarlets and cobalts. Witch hazel insists on deep daffodil. Daphne on cream and crimson. Scents slide sweeter. Light lingers evenings. Shall we shake off like bears from our hibernation dens to dawdle by the garden, dig up a weed, but leave the blazing dandelions, nectar for the early bees? And these last two poems I'm going to read appear in, well, will appear in my forthcoming chapbook, Held Together with Tape and Glue, which is supposed to be out in August. And pre-sales begin really soon, so you'll be hearing about that undoubtedly. On the word. Here we are, on the page, on the word, on the dot or the hook or the serif. Here we are in the big city, in this house, in this room or the kitchen. Here lies truth. Truth lies here on the sofa with us, where our feet are up stocking-footed, shoes tidily stowed in the closet when we came in from clearing dead leaves from the hollyhocks. This morning, as yesterday, and the hundreds of days before, we made our beds, raised our blinds, breakfasted, despite the churn in our guts, forecasting world's end. That day has not come. We lied in saying here we are. We are at a distance. We must shout until we arrive, until allowed to arrive, or led to the small room where we die. In the days to come, we will tend our gardens, some of which are tiny pots on a windowsill. Like old-fashioned desk blotters turning ink drops into soft-edged discs, we'll drink in sunshine. Soon darkness will enshroud us. We are throughout so typically ourselves, frantic about tumbling through rabbit holes, although we'd love to land in a magic place. Gleeful at the tree turning pink, the sky going blue, thrilled by a phrase in a book. We even jot it down to remember. The scaffold always rattles. Every tower crumbles. We cry and laugh about details, generalities. How did we get so good at calendars and clocks, still ignorant of true passage? Convalescence. A whole century passes in a single night. Embrace darkness, darling. Brain struggling during sleep, sweeps, bends, swoops trees aside. Trumpets blare announcement. Fair news foams on the sand. Everything happens in 5 minutes. Scenes undergo large and rapid changes. The optimist scans the scrub for helpful shadows. There is a chance we emerge convalesced.
I have learned many things from Pamela Hobart Carter through the years, including the difference between a junco and a chickadee. We have shared many tables and a lot of writing together, and my last poem celebrates that collaboration. So, this view from my table. This view from my table holds 4 large trees, 2 enclosed and 2 beyond worn white pickets under jasmine jungle. This view holds 1 stone bird bath, magnolia sheltered swimming pool for chickadee and junco, sparrow and thrush. This view holds 1 hummingbird feeder, green bungee swinging from red bud branch, small town cafe on Saturday morning. This view holds 1 round table and 4 metal chairs, reminders of warm weather pleasures under red umbrella, of spring flowers and summer scents soon to be. Thank you all very, very much for listening to Pam and I today. This has been really fun.
and I've got two poems. The first one's fairly short. It's entitled Wildfires. I write because your skies are filled with smoke, and you need a piece of this blue sky. I write because autumn's leaves danced with me to the empty mailbox, because fire licks your distant horizons while one, contained and of purpose, warms my crisp night. I write because my hand, not yours, brushes hair from my forehead. I write because the poem I finished last week longs to touch you, because I know no other way to be with you this night. Thank you. And hang on. Sorry about that. The second poem is entitled Shadows of Entanglement. It's a fairly old poem. Unseasonable chill finds ice in the river. Fog hangs around like a drunk on the streets. If it were only miles that separated us, you might understand what moves you to lie in tall grass. Tall grass, search the sky for me. Last night's lovers cast shadows of entanglement, blurred beginnings, endings, one to the other. If it were only miles that separated us, I might find you in the music of crickets, know your beginnings, endings, blurred one to the other. But the crickets are still this autumn night, and all I know is the unspoken between us, how it taunts like sun beyond mist. Thank you.
Two short pieces. The first is really just an epigram that I'm seriously considering putting at the start of a collection of poetry. A wise man, or probably woman, once said, "There is no limit to the energy a man can summon to apply to a project, as long as it is not what he is supposed to be doing." Poetry is a perfect example. The lap tray. 5 days after purchasing it, I peeled the world market barcode and the Made in Vietnam sticker from the back of the wooden lap tray and made it mine, pulled it into my orbit officially. Of course, I thought of you, Byron, plodding through that rice paddy over 50 years ago with your M16 slung across your chest. I wish you could see this tray and the chair it fits on so beautifully as I write these words.
Cry, beloved nation. Cry, beloved nation, weep bitter tears, white voices lament evil deeds, brown voices sing of paradise lost, black voices mourn generations doomed. On white ships fleeing oppression, we came to a land of beauty and bounty. We tilled, we killed, we took, and we built churches to God, our gracious Lord. The brown people who welcomed us, we thrust out into the wilderness. Great laws enacted, great words spoken, all for white men and their progeny. Oppression returned to us in black ships, carrying humans torn from homes, from family, folks, familiar sights, dreams, to agony among white-faced cruelty. White man slew white man to protect his right to torture black men, women, and children. Even today, statues of these men taunt us. Black voices haunt us. White man took my beautiful body, left me a babe to suckle, a child as doomed to slavery as I. God gave me a lion's strength, but I must bear the white man's humiliation, and the contempt in my children's eyes gnaws my vitals, all for their sake. Separate always, and somehow inferior. In the hellholes of our inner cities, we are doomed to live and die, lead poisoned, unschooled, frozen by chill penury. Why do you torment us thus? We are not responsible for ancestral evil. We have made amends. We have given alms. Leave us to enjoy life's simple joys. The only way to exorcise the evil among us is to own it, look at it in broad daylight, see the dappled skin of the serpent, to abhor every slither evermore. When church doors close out people, the Creator moves out to comfort them. The devil takes over the pulpit, inflames fear, greed, pride, kills shame. O my beloved nation, may you ever be a home where every child may hope and dream, where the needy find refuge, the hungry are fed, justice rules kindly on all humans and animals.
My mom passed away around this time last year. This is for my mom. It's called Darning. Cleaning out my mother's dresser, I find a pair of brown wool socks. She had stitched the toes, zigzag, loops protruding, and thread sticking out, like the little hairs that wouldn't fit into the ponytail my mother tried to tie. I picture her rummaging through her sewing kit, searching for a brown spool. Spinning on the kitchen stool, I watch her stiffen the limp thread with spit, pinch it with nimble fingers, squinting as if she were painting a wheat field or placid lake. She holds her brush steady, level to a horizon of trees. The red socks they give my mother in the hospital are dotted with little white hearts and treaded sole paw prints. We shuffle past the nursing station. The IV pole drags behind us. Gripping my arms, she waves, smiling at the nurse she just yelled at in the bathroom. She brushes silver hair away from her tired face and squeezes my hand. We move from room to room as if we were floating down the hall, past the nursing station, lunch carts, breathing machines, past the beeping noises of codes. A sudden breeze lifts her indigo blue gown, and we float higher and higher, much further than the moon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to read one poem today, a slightly longer poem. It's called Here She Remains Where It Matters Least. She tries to remember a white picket fence, roses climbing over it. The fence is living, grown taller each year, now dressed with mildew, embedded with nails to keep the roses standing. She can see, but only just, slivers of sky blue sky poking through ever-narrowing slats. Soon the fence will grow, a roof of thorns and tight buds. She will be in a house cage house of her own homemaking. She has let this happen. In late summer, she dreams the wind takes charge, blows it all away into the open fields, her house cage house. She won't rush to stop it. In late summer, she has nowhere to be. She is at the water's edge, on the border of wet sand, dry sand. The tide has gone out, left behind blind albino crabs tangled in strands of seaweed. She unravels the seaweed, watches the crabs run. Seaweed grows in the warmth of the sun. She sorts her seaweed into long strips. It glistens on the sand. She weighs it down at one end with a stone, begins to braid it. Long, luminous ropes slip with ease through her hands. She is untethered. Her hair thinned with the years, she loops the seaweed around her neck, hooks onto her ears, over her head, makes hair. Walks back to her house cage house that is not there. In her pockets, she carries sea glass, duller with each step away from the ocean. Her seaweed braids are tie-bobbed in her hair. She dreams, she brushes, strokes it into long strips. She is windblown, back to wet sand, dry sand, pushed into the ocean. She finds round pebbles to put with the sea glass in her pockets, to weigh her down, turn back the tide, to no avail. She should have built a seawall to protect herself. She dreams. Her lungs crave air. She is twisted juniper driftwood. She sleeps on heaving seas, splintered, blindsided by the moon. She cannot change course. No longer buoyant wood, she is sea foam lilting further and further away. Without arms, how does she propel herself through water? Come morning, she is thrown onto wet sand, dry sand. She dreams. She can breathe again, in and out, in and out. She wakes late in the day. She stands motionless. The thorns are thick. The buds are closed. Thank you.
Yet. I have two short poems. The first one was published in Alaska Quarterly. It was inspired by, I took my kids to the circus several years ago, and there were animal activists out front, and they were handing out pamphlets and what have you. And so this was inspired by that. It's called Tiger Tamer. Sarah whispers into the soft ear hairs of 7 Bengal tigers, purring like NASCAR engines in a 1.5 ton heap of fur. They love the way she uses her whip, and especially the way she does not. In another life, they might be wandering dry stream beds, chasing down an antelope, or crumpling a water buffalo, or even hiding from poachers intent on grinding their balls into the dust of an ancient aphrodisiac. But in this life, they live for Sarah, 5 foot, 10-inch blonde and beautiful Sarah, who leaves their balls intact. And the cats don't mind standing on a chair for her, or dancing a little jig, or even playing dead. Thank you. And the second poem, I've never written a limerick before, so somebody challenged me to write a limerick. So here's my one and only limerick in life. It's called King Cyrus. There was once a lingering virus who insisted I call him King Cyrus. He stole all my money, wrecked 2020, then killed both Snoopy and Linus. Thank you.
Okay, this is something I wrote for a class a couple weeks ago where I was supposed to write a poem about the quarantine. So I'm calling this Waking Dream Log. A series of mornings like these at the beginning of the plague keep returning with gray light that filters between my bedroom's Venetian blinds. It is a soulless torpor I don't choose, so I dream eastward across the Cascades to where sagebrush blows across the roads in the rolling hills of the Palouse. I pass rock-strewn dens that hide rattlesnakes hissing about gun rights. And then it's on to North Dakota, where militias rally with AR-15s, shouting slogans of white nationalism that carry to Iowa and Ohio, and finally to Florida. There, the Twitter-blocked former dictator belts out his diatribes on immaculate lawns under the shade of palm trees. The MAGA hatter harangues any television crew or group of intellectually deadbeat fans that will listen. Meanwhile, in Disney World, Mickey and Minnie are masked and expecting another cartoon child. Alice is spinning in a cracked bed on a cracked teacup ride, her brain soft and spun like cotton candy on a dosage of Ativan and oxycodone. The red cap followers of the out-of-work dictator continue on to the sprawling estate of the hate talk show host, patrolled by alligators. But then I arouse, robbed of breath by sleep apnea as the sky presses down again and again over the fitfully waking city. I know I can watch YouTube videos all day of reactionaries on the Fox News channel, trying to rewrite recent history. Yet I would rather walk among the masked in this current rendition of Purgatory Light.
No, it
Okay,
seems
I'm going to
fine.
read two poems. Both of them are part of a series, a book I'm working on. The first one is called First Taste Oysters. Dad took me with him into the darkness of the South at night. We drove the old highway to shacks by the sea, piles of ghostly white shells. Under lanterns, black oystermen moved in and out of firelight. Their shadows danced on the sand. From a radio, a woman sang a song so sad, a horn that followed her seemed to break apart on the notes. I didn't understand that strange music, so full of hurt, its rough meanings, yet I breathed it in, a kind of comfort in the dark. Back home, in our bright yellow kitchen, the oysters went into the hottest oven. When their shells parted, Dad put a pat of butter in each unlocked mouth. I was young, and I ate without prejudice, my mouth hungry and innocent. When I bit an oyster, it yielded, rich and briny. I tasted sweetness, sunshine, and salt, the sharp edge of the blues. This next one is called Black Widows, a very different geography here. It was summer in Jacksonville, the sky a fierce blue, pavement too hot to touch. Our bungalow laid low under the heat. The thin arms of the black fan whirring faster, faster. Clattering palms made their own breezy music. Many were the dangers of Florida: alligators, snakes, cockroaches. Swarms of hurricanes blew away houses, flooded the streets. Worms tunneled into our skin. I was warned never to put my fingers under the slanted white boards of the house. I studied how the boards held the house together, how where one board passed over the other, there was room just big enough for fingers. I worried about the spiders, if they watched me through the window when I slept. I was on guard against the house, didn't walk close to its walls outdoors, knew death lurked inches away. The spiders lay nested and waiting, sleek and black, like mother's leather gloves, each with a small red spot on her abdomen.
So far. I'm going to read one poem. It's called Half Truths, and it was recently published in the San Pedro River Review, and it's partially based on a real event that happened on Cape Cod with inspiration from a little bit of magical realism. Half Truths. It was the cusp of summer, a loss lingering just around the bend. Little did we know, racing to navy water, ocean blue sky, sand polka dotted with cranberries, that the world was flat and light curved. We breathed in salty stories, hands and arms riding the wind out open windows. The hill shook its towel, but sand stood firm under deflated tires. With no time to fasten seatbelts, we somersaulted up and over like a beach ball caught by a tailwind. TJ knew this was normal. His baritone stayed steady. I questioned the history, the dunes, my entire adult life, trying to stand on its head, proving it right and me wrong. B took copious notes. Her pencil worked upside down. The umbrellas kept her page from getting burned. After 3 rotations, the SUV landed upright on water. The sand hung high in the sky, a puzzle for us to sail to our landlocked home. Next time, I'll wear fancier shoes, pair them with a straw hat. TJ will buy stock and hand sanitizer. B will watch a keyboard write her story, no effort needed. Here's what I learned that day at the flat edge of the world. Always leave a light on, a breadcrumb for friends, known to roll in at midnight, high on a wave of cool white sand, always cresting, always flowing, sometimes ebbing in all the wrong directions. Thank you.
Thank you, Leopoldo. I'm going to tell it's a haibun, which is like a paragraph with a haiku underneath it. And I'm trying to express this true story of something that happened to me many years ago at a bank. It's a haibun, an incident at a bank. While making a deposit, I noticed a husband and wife across the way finishing a transaction. I would guess he is 90 and she is about 85. I think how beautiful they are and want to tell them so, but they are finished and leave first. When I walk out to the parking lot, they are near their car on the opposite side. The woman turns. I catch her eye, smile, and say hi. She smiles back at me. Hi, 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 hi. I think, oh shit. She is still talking as she walks towards me. Hi, 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 hi. Her husband shouts at her. What the hell are you doing, Marie? She is unable to stop. Hi, 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 hi. He rushes to grab her arm and lead her back to the car, ignoring my shouted, I'm so sorry. An old newspaper blows by, a robin sings.